Uh, hey there, it is that time of the month where we like to do a national market update. As you know, if you watch any of these, we do two a month. We do one that is from us or myself here at Five Market Realty, where I look at the information in the MLS and we look specifically at Athens and Oconee County to kind of gauge. And then this is another resource we use from something called Keeping Current Matters. I'm a big fan of it because as the broker here and as a real estate agent, I'm excited to get information about what's happening across the country. And so it's a really good tool for us to use to keep you informed and really ourselves too. And we're going to address something that's a big topic in the news, and it's a topic with a lot of people right now, is recession fear and recession talk. The Atlanta Fed hasn't come out with numbers yet, but we might actually already be in a recession, or we might be about to be told we're going into one. So, recession is a scary word, and that's obviously 2008 is big on people's mind. So we want to talk about how that impacts the housing market and the real truth and what we've seen historically about it, because, there really might be, or we are experiencing, an economic slowdown. We're having people that are in the market ask us about it, people that are not in the market, and we're actually still seeing some pretty strong indicators. But it really depends on what price point you're at and what your need is, because it's a very personal decision for a lot of people on how they're feeling about what we're experiencing with inflation and things like that. So let's just take a look at this statement from the Wall Street Journal. Recession fears surge among CEOs, a survey suggests. Three-quarters of global CEOs say we are in a recession or will be in one in the next 12 to 18 months. And that's sort of, that goes to the narrative that we're talking about, is people are talking about this recession and it's getting in people's mind. And here's something to note, though. Throughout history, during a recessionary period, interest rates go up at the beginning of the recession, sort of like we're seeing now. But in order to come out of the recession, interest rates are lowered to stimulate the economy forward. Historically, we have seen a repeated uptick in interest rates followed by lower interest rates. Kind of interesting because it doesn't feel like interest rates will ever go down again. But if you look at this historically, let's take a look here at mortgage rates over the last several recessions. So this goes back all the way to 1971, before my time. That's going to be 10 years before my time. And then let's go to about my time, which was 81. And as you can see here, that recession, which is Carter and Reagan, 16% interest rates down to 11.8. Then we bumped to 83, 84. We were at 18%, going down to 13%. 1991, the George Bush years, I only remember that from the election talk. And we were at 11% interest rates, trickling back down to 8.8. Then we look at 2002, 7.4. I actually recall the first property I was able to buy when I was a young man was a small condo. My interest rate was 7.5%, and I was told I should really be excited about it. Now, 2009 mortgage crisis, 6% down to 4.9%. Then we stayed in this little sub 5 percentage range for a pretty good long time. And frankly, I guess we've been spoiled by it. But then as you can see right here in the last one, which was COVID lockdowns, we dropped from 3.8, which was still fantastic, all the way down to 2.8. And at the end of the graph, we're seeing this now uptick as we predict that we are already in a recession or heading into one. This is just rundowns what I've already said. I won't spend too much time on this slide, but as you can see, the trend has been with every recession, we start off with an uptick in the interest rates, and then eventually to come out of the recession, we start to go down in interest rates to help fuel us out. The green arrow is indicating it went down in every one of those recessions. Now, here's a statement from Fortune magazine. Over the past 5 recessions, mortgage rates have fallen an average of 1.8% from the peak seen during the recession, excuse me. And in many cases, they continue to fall after the fact, as it takes some time to turn things around until the recession is technically over. Now, we've talked about this before, that a recession doesn't equal a housing crisis. And this is a familiar slide to you if you follow this at all, but unfortunately, it's really the truth. You've got 2 instances in here where we saw that house price change. Obviously, 2008, which is about the only time in 100 years the house prices really went down. Then 1980, let me move here, 6.1, 3.5%, which is really stable. 2001, 6.6%, and then 2020, 6% increase. So what we're probably thinking we're going to see is a much more decelerating and slowing down of appreciation, which is welcome. There's some good news in this for people, especially home buyers. And that's what I want to get to now is the inventory. Inventory update, we're going to look at the numbers and kind of explain to you what's going on. Let's get started with that. And several things are down. Number one, offers are down. You were seeing a one-time national average about 6 offers per property. Now that's down to 4 offers per property on average. Offers over asking are down. They used to see about 61% recently, maybe let's say March. Now that's down about 45% of offers going over asking price. The overall amount of sales is also down. And we alluded to that and having several times in our Athens market reports that the sales volumes are just down relative to 21 and 20, which are also historic. But we're going to look at something that might be more of a anomaly. Here's the green arrow pointing up, inventory. Inventory is starting to turn around a little bit, get a little bit more of it because not so much of new listings, but because of existing home sales slowing down. Existing home sales slowing down. So here's a quote from Mark Fleming, who we've quoted here many times, chief economist. There's been a pickup in inventory that we've seen recently, but it's not from a big increase in new listings, as I was just saying, but rather a slowdown in the pace of sales. And remember that month supply measures the inventory of sale relative to the pace of sales. Same inventory, fewer sales means more months of supply. So let's go look at the months of supply inventory homes for sale January to May, about 2.6 months. And if you keep in mind, 6 months is a balance. So we're still very heavily in a low supply market, but we are coming out of where we've been, which should give buyers a little bit more encouragement to get into the market, not because of fears, but because when you couldn't do before felt so frustrating, it might start to be a little less frustrating, a little bit more doable. Now we look at the monthly listing counts, and we go over this in the Athens report because I'm always interested. New monthly listings. As you can see, the blue bar that was below 2021 in January and in February and in March slightly ticked up in April. This is nationwide, not in Athens. And then in May, it took ahead. So we're actually starting to see a little bit more new listings than we saw in 2021. Another good sign for our inventory. Existing home sales, this is where it's different. And if I could draw a line across here, I would. 6.1 million existing home sales in 2021, 5.6 million in 2020. Those two numbers are way above what we saw in 2018 and 2019, and still significantly above 2017. Now we are projecting by NAR that it's going to be 5.4 million homes sold this year. And as you can see, that's much more starting to get in line with 2018 and 2019, which represents a little bit more normal real estate market. So that could be a good sign. Quote from Lawrence Young, chief economist in AR, home sales have essentially returned to the levels seen in 2019. Prior to the pandemic, after 2 years of gangbuster performance. I literally said this in our Athens report last week. We got to stop comparing things to 2021 because that was historic. That was it. You want to call that the height of the market. It may not be the height of your home price, but it might be the height of exuberance of multiple offers and things like that. So active inventory continued to grow, rising 21% above 1 year ago. In other words, we're starting to add more options, but the market needs even more before home shoppers have a selection that's roughly equivalent to pre-pandemic housing market. That is the chief economist Danielle Hell at Realtor.com. We got an updated forecast now for the inventory of 2022. Earlier in the year, as you can see, this very abysmal 0.3% inventory has now been updated to 15%. So that is an increase, and while still low, actually an improvement for your home buyers. Another quote here, which is starting to see less competition, fewer bidding wars, and therefore less upward pressure on price. This is a good thing because we could not continue the pace that we were. I think everybody understood that. You know, you'd have a house that was $300,000, then it was $330,000, then it was $350,000. Next thing you know, it's a $400,000 house. We're not talking over 3 years. We're talking inside of a year, and that was just going a little too fast. We should start to see the less competition. In fact, a simple analysis shows that a 1 month increase in the month supply results in a 3% decline in annualized house appreciation. So if we were getting 20% year-over-year appreciation, and we get 1 more month supply of homes, that should bring the year-over-year annual appreciation down to 17%, just so if you weren't following what that meant. Should I buy a home right now? That's the question that a lot of people are going to ask. Frankly, we have a lot of people still looking. The real difference we're seeing is some of the higher price points that we're seeing less activity because traditionally, the higher the price home, the less people can afford it. But we have a lot of people at a different price point being very aggressive still. Now, here is the national and local headlines that kind of get in people's heads, and this is sort of where we try to be more of a resource instead of just a headline for you. The cooling housing market enters to the great deceleration, big scary word. We've been talking about deceleration, and we're excited about it. Home prices decelerate as the housing market downshifts, and buying a home at the wrong time can backfire big time. Nobody wants to buy something that they think is going to go down in value. That's for sure. So, I mean, when you buy a car, it's kind of understood that it probably will. course, if it was 2021, it might have gone up in value. So there's a lot of people's fear, and you really need to have this a little bit more in perspective. What's really going to happen versus what happened in 2008, because decelerating home prices do not mean depreciating. We've talked about this so many times. I feel like in 2 years, back to forbearance and all kind of things, that we're talking about the amount of appreciation, and we expect that to slow. Just to make a point, if a home was worth $500,000 in 2019, then went up to $650,000, then it might be worth $615,000, meaning it's still $115,000 more than it was in 2019. Home price forecast, still an average of about 8% between all these 7 forecasts, CoreLogic, NAR, Zelman, various things like Fannie Mae. So that's still up, but what we probably are going to see is this is going to squelch down a little bit. Now, this is the estimated home price performance looking for the rest of the year, but really what we want to look towards here, 2023, 4.19, 2024, 3.12, then ticking back up to about 3 to 4%, which is a lot more normalized appreciation that we used to see. It's something that would probably be welcome, that would make people feel like home prices weren't getting away from them, and they could continue to move forward with them. Now, the root issue of what drives house prices almost always is supply and demand. Now, interest rates affect that. When interest rates go up, guess what? Fewer buyers. The demand goes down, thus prices are going to soften or not be cray-cray. I'm quoting Dave Ramsey there, as they have been, and that's what we're seeing right now. So this is a Dave Ramsey quote, and most of you know who he is, and I wish he wouldn't have got me to say cray-cray. But what he's saying is that these home prices are probably going to be leveling off, which is very welcome in our industry in a lot of ways. I began to fear for people's ability to buy a home, and now I'm actually a little bit more optimistic on how this is all going to shake out. Single-family housing units, we've gone over this numerous times. What's going to be a driver here is our supply is going to remain pretty low. You can see here for 14 straight years, we have been below the 50-year average of building homes. Now, we're going to start trying to build more homes. That's going on. The builders are trying to help, but you still got a lot to make up for. And what we're going to cover here at the end is what's generating that supply. U.S. population growth by generation. These 4 bars in the middle represent the millennial generation. And basically, these people, this age group, which I guess I'm barely in, which is a little disappointing, represent about, I think it's somewhere around 80% of first-time home buyers are in this age group. Peak home buying years, first-time home buyers, 81% of them. And 41% of all home buyers are in this millennial generation. Did you hear that? About 41% of all the buyers and 81% of first-time home buyers operating in this age range. Experts don't believe the market is in a bubble or a crash is in the cards, like the Great Recession. The nation is still suffering from a housing shortage that has reached crisis proportions at a time when many millennials are reaching the age when they start to consider home ownership. That's likely to keep prices high. So while I was talking about, home price appreciation slowing down, these are the reasons we don't see it turning around. And you got to keep things in perspective. Is the house still up? For instance, a lot of people right now that we're seeing in the market, what's going on is, they were exuberant. They're trying to get the price, press it again. And long and short, what's happened is, you might have been asking $700,000 for a really nice home, and now it's time to ask $650,000 for it. That's happened in some homes. On the flip side of things, at different price points, 500 and below, we're still seeing a very competitive market. Pricing homes right now has been very difficult. I've reached a point where I've just told some sellers straight that, hey, listen, you need to get it right, because we've made the mistake in this exuberant market of getting too high, and then we're paying the price for it because we didn't do it right to begin with. So if you're a buyer, long and short, be enthusiastic that things are going to slow down, and you might have some more opportunity. And if you're a home seller, you also need to realize that just because it's not going up at 20%, it's not a bad thing. It's really not as bad a news as we feel like it. Inflation is not fun. Gas prices aren't fun. But we're going to do our best to keep you informed. Thank you for sticking along for 14 minutes. These updates are going to become more important as you think about what you need to do with a plan for your property, investment property, retirement, any kind of thing you're thinking about with regards to real estate. Let us be your resource, 5mrealty.com, info@5mrealty. And y'all have a great rest of July, and we'll try to get this information out to you.